Hello and welcome to Pardon the Interruption. The topic for today's show is a bit of a recap and just general information about the Concordia 2018 football season for the Falcons.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprising year. We'll give you the rundown of all their games from the season. We'll give you some look at the standings, what happened overall, and we'll run through some of the key players and their numbers for the year. So we'll start with game one. It was a big win over Finlandia to kind of start the tone of the season. Obviously, Finlandia has a small roster.
Yeah, obviously that wasn't intentional that we make the schedule, but kind of worked out, I guess, as you would see in higher level collegiate athletes to start the season off with kind of a signature win and a game that you kind of go into knowing that you're going to win. But yeah, like you said, Finlandia definitely had some personal problem issues that limited the depth of their roster and everything last year. So yeah, statement win there to start the year.
Yeah, Concordia picks up the win 31-3 in that one. The second year in a row they beat Finlandia. They beat them last season as well. They had a big day on offense, obviously. Over 300 passing yards, over 130 rushing yards, and overall just a big win to start the year. Moving to the second game, it was a tough loss against Augsburg, 27-24, in a game where Augsburg held control of it for 3 quarters of play before Concordia was able to come back in the fourth and try to make a game out of it.
Yeah, definitely. This was kind of an interesting game because obviously second game of the season, Falcons really didn't know where they stood or what they were going to be. Obviously last year struggled with only 2 wins, but obviously Aaron Nixon injured, not at the helm last year, so kind of figuring things out. No one really knew what to expect from this season, so just big for the Falcons to even come back and make this one close. But I think a missed short field goal kind of came back to haunt them as they only lost by 3.
Moving to game 3, the last non-conference game of the season for them, was picked up a 26-15 win over Alma. Offense played well again. Defense kept Alma off the board. It was just kind of it was a good way to start the year 2-1 before moving into the conference schedule.
Yeah, definitely another, like you said, just kind of a confidence-boosting win after picking up a close loss, but always good to have a little bit of that confidence booster before you head into some conference play within the NAC.
Game 4, the first conference game on the road against Benedictine. The highest scoring game. Falcons pull off a 48-40 win. Wasn't always, I guess, the cleanest game. Concordia's offense struggled. Only 16-30 passing, a 53% completion for Nixon. But they still racked up over 600 yards of offense, 400 through the air, 200 on the ground. The highest scoring game, and neither team could figure out how to stop each other.
Yeah, it's kind of been that way, it seems, the last couple times. Last year when we played Benedictine as well, always kind of those high scoring shootout affairs. But definitely, I mean, like you said, only 16-30 completed passes, but still 400 yards in the air. So obviously some big plays when they did connect. But like another situation where it was important for the Falcons to see that they can pick up wins in those kind of close game scenarios. First time they'd really done that this season.
And then a big game coming up after that, at home against Lakeland, a big rivalry, the Cheese Bowl as they call it. Concordia with a big shutout win, 17-0. Defense played really well. It was kind of a messy game. I think it was a rainy weekend.
Yeah, Lakeland with a number of turnovers in that one, 5, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, I mean, kind of a surprising win, I guess you could say. At this point, like we said, Falcons still kind of figuring it out. No one really knew if they were real or not, I guess you could say. And obviously with Lakeland being one of the most prestigious teams in the conference over the last couple of years, being right up there at the top of the NAC, kind of a surprising shutout win.
After that, Concordia traveled to Aurora. They picked up a third conference win of the year, 23-20 over Aurora. Offense kept time of possession pretty well. They made some plays overall. Just another close win, but another statement win for them.
Yeah, definitely. and something that we hadn't seen obviously last year. Last year Falcons, like we said, only 2 wins, but they did play in a couple of these close games, but they really didn't seem to be able to pull any of them out. But just that this year they were able to kind of close out those close victory games, barring that second game of the season, has definitely shown some growth and improvement for the team.
Heading into October 20th, then another home game, Concordia picks up a 45-34 win over Concordia Chicago to move to 4-0 in the conference at the time. Surprisingly, not like high offensive numbers really. They only picked, well, actually it was, they picked up 300 yards passing, total yards, 165 through the air, which is kind of surprising. Usually Nixon threw the ball a lot more, but they ran for 158 yards and dominated the time of possession with over 35 minutes with the football. Another high-scoring win for Concordia at that point.
Yeah, kind of odd when you look at the numbers there. You mentioned it. I mean, 325 yards of offense isn't terrible, but for the Falcons is kind of less than expected, but still put up 45 points. So, I mean, definitely good defense, getting them good field position and putting them in good positions to score. Even when they weren't driving the ball all the way down the field, but we're still able to find ways to score and pick up another high-scoring win.
You move into the last 3 games of the year. Start off with a tough loss against Eureka. Eureka, who actually went on to win the conference after that. It was a 48-45 loss. Neither team could really stop each other, I guess. Concordia picks up over 560 yards of offense, 395 through the air, 168 on the ground. But the problem was that Eureka held the ball for over 37 minutes of the game, Concordia only having about 23. But it was a close loss. You think if you hold the ball more, you get a win out of that one.
Yeah, definitely, and that definitely was a game that would kind of, I don't know if you want to say come back to haunt them, but definitely was a deciding factor coming down. Like you said, Eureka ended up winning the conference, so a game that if you're the Falcons could have gone either way, another one of those crazy shootout, high-scoring affair games, which Falcons kind of seemed to prevail in earlier in the year, but one that ended up kind of being the dagger for the Falcons, which is real painful considering they only lost by 3.
Any of the last 2, it had to Rockford on November 3rd. A tough loss against a team that isn't that good, honestly.
Yeah.
But a 24-0 shutout that Rockford handed Concordia. Another game where the time of possession kind of, dictated the outcome. Concordia only holds the ball. They hold the ball for less than 20 minutes. Struggle to move the ball in general. They only pick up 21 rushing yards. They run for 0.9 yards a carry. Rockford just found a way to shut down Concordia this whole game.
I mean, yeah, if you want to, could have said that last game versus Eureka losing by 3 was a dagger, but I mean, this was definitely something that no one had expected. We talked about how Concordia kind of exceeded expectations all year, and then second last week of the season when, the conference title possibility is coming down to the line, you head to Rockford and get shut out, and like you said, not be able to even move the ball or score at all was really surprising and disappointing for the Falcons as they look to possibly have a chance to win the conference and make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. And last game of the year against Wisconsin Lutheran, Concordia needed a couple things to go right for them to have a chance to win the conference. They do get the win, but Eureka picked up the win, I believe, that weekend as well. Concordia beats Wisconsin Lutheran 21-14. Kind of a game that started out pretty slow. Neither team really could find their groove until late. Concordia picks up some touchdowns late in the game to pick up the win.
Yeah, I mean, no one. I think 3 points were scored before the 2-minute mark, before halftime, and then in a 3.5-minute stretch, not including the halftime break, I think 28 total points were scored.
Yeah.
So, just kind of a weird game where it was lackluster and nothing happened for a long time, and then just a barrage of points coming in a short time, and then it kind of stalled again the entire third quarter. No one scored. So like you said, kind of a weird game, but one that the Falcons were able to pull out on senior day, and sad that they were able to pick up that win, but not enough. There were 2 other scenarios that had to happen, neither of which happened with Eureka winning and Rockford winning. The Falcons ended up being 1 game behind.
So that's the season recap. We'll take a look at the standings real quick now. So like we said, Eureka wins the conference. They go 6-1 on the season, 9-2 overall. Concordia finishes right behind them them and Aurora tied for second place, basically at 5-2 in the conference. Lakeland at 4-3, kind of surprising, I guess, usually since they've been so good. And Benedictine at 3-4, Rockford 2-5. Same with Wisconsin Lutheran, and Concordia Chicago finishes 1-6.
I mean, yeah, the glaring kind of standout there, I would say, obviously, is Rockford 2-5. One of those 2 wins coming against us in that shutout victory that we talked about. So, I mean, yeah, when it comes down to it, and the Falcons finishing 1 game behind Eureka, definitely those 2, the third and second last games of the season against Eureka and Rockford, were definitely ones that you would look at as, should have or could have swung the other way to possibly give the Falcons a tie for the conference, and had they beat Eureka in that game, would have held the tiebreaker.
Overall, it was a good season for Concordia. Honestly, a little bit surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Entering the year, I don't think many people had the expectation that this team could finish second in the conference.
No, I don't think so.
Potentially not even like top 4 or 5. But yeah, obviously you got good years from a couple seniors. Aaron Nixon led the NAC in passing yards, led it in touchdowns. Passing touchdowns, he actually finished top 5 in rushing touchdowns as well, which kind of speaks to the rotation we use at running back, but also kind of the struggles to get consistency out of that position all year.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, Nixon showed all year that when the Falcons, were struggling and had nowhere to go, he kind of created opportunities all game long for the Falcons, got them out of a lot of jams, and really was the cornerstone of this offense. And, I mean, besides Nixon coming back, not a lot changed or got better from last season to this season. If anything, we regressed at the line positions.
Freshmen.
Almost, yeah, our entire offensive line, even all of the 2 deep, were freshmen, no upperclassmen, so definitely points to how good Nixon was all season long.
And Nixon got some help on the outside from Josh Sanders as well. He had a big year, led the NAC in receiving yards per game, same in touchdowns. And then Jacob Rotella finished top 4, finished 4th with 6 touchdowns on the season to kind of lead this offense, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Nixon to Sanders connection was one that definitely was the go-to for the Falcons offense. Sanders had a number of big games this year that helped the Falcons through the air. Like you said, led the NAC in yards per game through the air. So both of them being seniors, that'll be a huge loss for the Falcons next year as they look ahead to the next season.
Mm-hmm. So the Falcons, after the year, had 5 players that received all-NAC first-team honoree. Aaron Nixon was kind of just a shoe-in, basically, off of his big season, leading yards and touchdowns, and was running the ball really well for the Falcons. Josh Sanders also getting that selection due to his big games. Sanders even had that in the game against Augsburg, had 15 catches in just that single game, and over 200 yards in that win against Benedictine. Just Nixon to Sanders, like you said, it was so great. On the defensive side, Dwayne Rackard picks up one for having 96 tackles, 3rd in the conference, and then a freshman, Josiah McDermott, in the secondary. Had a big year with 11 pass defense, picked off 4 balls, and then senior punter Jacob Mason was the last one.
Yeah, definitely the core of the Falcons team right there, if you were going to look, especially the seniors, like you mentioned. We talked about Nixon and Sanders, but also Mason, and then also some help, like you said, from Dwayne Rackard III coming in as a sophomore will definitely be big for the Falcons going forward. That on the defensive end, we'll have some veteran leadership next year and the year after that, actually.
Yeah, they picked up a couple all-NAC second-team honorees as well. H-back, Jacob Patella, talked about him with those 6 touchdowns. And then freshman offensive lineman Tyler Ryan. So good to see when the freshmen get mentioned already. Show some hope for the future on that offensive line that had its struggles throughout the year as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we talked about how young the line was, and definitely you're going to have some struggles at the start of the season, but they definitely showed a large amount of growth throughout the entire season. But I mean, a lot of quarterbacks wouldn't have been able to be as successful as Nixon was with that offensive line. There were definitely a lot of times when, their protection definitely wasn't ideal throughout the game, but Nixon, making plays happen with pressure in his face on almost every single throw was quite impressive. But obviously with the inexperience at the line, they'll have the opportunity to grow. Say, we'll be together for 3 more years, ideally.
Yeah. Falcons had a couple more young defensive players get mentioned as well. Sophomore linebacker Justin Dunlap, who finished second on the team with 60 tackles, and then sophomore defensive back Brandon Hargis also had 32 tackles, 4th among defensive backs on the team. Both of them got mentioned in the second team. So hope for the future on the defense for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like we said, Falcons obviously losing some key players on the offensive end. Definitely going to be a task finding and replacing Nixon and Sanders. I think they've already started that. Got a number of potential quarterback options, freshman and sophomore, this year that they'll look to groom into being the next starter for the 2019 season.
Yeah. So I guess looking ahead to next season now, we talked about all the seniors leaving. Does the expectation continue that this team sticks where it is, or do you think they might take a step back next year?
I think that they'll definitely regress a little bit next year, which is why obviously we talked about this year how they exceeded all their expectations, and it was kind of, I don't know if selfish is the right word, but after not really expecting them to produce much, it was almost like everyone was disappointed then that they didn't win the conference, which, it is what it is. But you can also look at it like maybe it wasn't expected, but this was the last year for Nixon and Sanders. So if there was a time, within the next couple years that the Falcons were going to have a shot at it, this probably would have been it. I think that, within the next 2 to 3 years, the Falcons can make another run at the conference title when all that the youth and inexperience that we talked about is kind of more groomed in our upperclassmen. But I think definitely next year they might struggle a little bit, especially in the early goings, trying to fill those voids.
Yeah. Right now, you say probably James Lynn is probably the front runner for the quarterback job next year. He came in that last game against Wisconsin Lutheran. He kind of had a game-winning drive, ran for the go-ahead touchdown late in that one. He also got freshman running back Josh Turner, led the team in rushing. So those 2 guys, you try to probably build your team around in the upcoming years.
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of interesting with James Lynn in that game. Hadn't obviously really seen many reps all year because of Nixon and how well he'd played, but definitely a good sign for him to come in and lead a game-winning drive on senior day, kind of ironically in the last game of the season. So like you said, definitely some hope going forward, but I don't know if we can expect for them to pick up right where they left off this season with the youth that they're going to have next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's all we got for today.
I think that'll just about do it. Yeah, wrapping up 2018 Falcons season and looking forward to another one next year.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.